1, 2, 3, go.
So that was his bottle. Yeah, Riley, actually, we had that conversation last night, me and a couple of the other dads, and they were surprised. And I'm like, why would I, like, I'd rather just give them 200 grand, honest to God. Like, here's 200 grand, go live for 5 years and do whatever you want, and then figure it out by yourself from there.
I feel like I could do that. Kevin, you good?
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 20th installment of the Dynasty Wall Street podcast. That's right, guys. We are at number 20. It's a big milestone day for us, I guess, if you go by even numbers and things like that. I am Kevin Cotillo. I have John Bosch with me. What's going on, John?
I'm looking forward to 21. 21's the important year, right?
I don't know. We'd have to ask our co-host, Riley Bymaster, who's also here. Is 21 an important year?
We're getting close. We're 2 months away.
2 months away.
I'll tell you then.
Can you taste it?
What's that?
Can you taste it? Can you taste the alcohol?
I don't know if I can taste it. I can taste the sun drop tonight, though. It tastes mighty good when my Nick Mullins share is actually starting for me.
So before we get started on the podcast tonight and get into our regular format, which we'll be going over a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver. In our typical format, we're going to talk to you a little bit about players that you would be buying if you're in a championship mode and going for a run. We'll get into that in a second. But before we do, I want to really quickly for 2 minutes debate the Nick Mullins, Brock Osweiler challenge that Riley posed to us. So Riley, you went with Mullins.
I did go with Mullins. Why? Because he's a quarterback. Buys actually killed me in this league. I'm in first place, so I mean I have a little room to work with. Mullins over Osweiler. I mean, I don't know. Pick your poison,
October. Oh, it's not even Brocktober anymore. I guess that's over.
It's not. It's November. That was the main reasoning.
There you go. Well, listen, but by the time anyone hears this, they will know whether or not you were smart or stupid. So we'll just get right into the show. As I mentioned, we are going to do a player each: quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Player that you're going to try and get if you are in championship mode. So if you've had a good season so far and you're looking at setting your sights on that trophy, and you want to add a player, a veteran of some sort, someone that's going to get you some consistent points or some extra points to take you over the top, these are the guys that you want to target. And we're also going to tell you some guys that you can move to try and get them that we'd be comfortable letting go of our roster. And since that's pretty self-explanatory, we can get right to it. The only thing I will mention is, as we usually do, we are going to use the Dynasty Trade Calculator, which you can find on dynastytradecalculator.com. We are going to use PPR Superflex value, which we always do. Obviously, that helps us with the quarterback discussion, and it's pretty much the same across the board for the other positions. So that's what we'll be looking at. And Bosch, I think you're going to kick it off with a quarterback.
I am. So put yourself in the situation where, you're in a Superflex. You've been doing all right. You've got one really good, solid quarterback. Then your other quarterback was Jameis Winston. That's who you were counting on. Marcus Mariota. He hasn't been that great. Derek Carr. Lots of these names. Blake Bortles.
All of my rosters.
Yes, I'm literally naming my rosters.
This hurts just to hear.
but basically that's your second quarterback. But now that you're in this position to, go all in, this is maybe the spot that you want to shore up your roster a little bit if you feel comfortable everywhere else. So the quarterback that I'm going to bring tonight, he's actually got a little bit more value than I was kind of expecting when I went to the calculator and looked it up, but it's Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's right now not really a guy that I want on my roster unless I'm going for a championship. I think he's got less years left than a lot of us maybe are expecting. I could see him walking away at any point. Maybe he's got a year or two after this left, but I think he's coming to the end. So I don't really want to put a lot of investment in him. He does come in at the calculator at the 17.4, which in Superflex currently equals the 2019 1.05. So if you're competing, you're not going to have that early first, most likely. So you're going to have to figure out a way to get somebody else's first to go for it. But I'm curious, let's start there with the picks, and then we've got several player tiers that we're going to go through. Would you guys go for Big Ben in this situation? And would you be willing to pay up that much to try and add him to your roster right now? Kevin, let's start with you.
I don't think I'm going to give up the 105 unless it's an injury situation, right? If I'm a team that's a contender that's looking to go forward, if it's, Jimmy Garoppolo was my second quarterback and it really just hasn't worked out. Maybe if it's like an Eli Manning, fine, I might make this move now. But if I have Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston obviously is another one I guess you can throw in there because he's not going to be starting and may not be starting for the rest of the season. Well, remains to be seen there. But I think, if it's just an underperforming thing, I'm not giving up the 105 for sure. I'm going to stick with it because the point difference is going to be big some weeks, not big other weeks. I think I can make it up in other scenarios, and I don't want to sell my future or a 105 to get the 105 to get Big Ben. So for me, it's really only if I'm down to one quarterback in a super flex league and I have to have a second.
What about you, Riley?
I agree. I mean, you're going to get relatively similar outputs from the Mariotas, the Carrs, and Roethlisberger. I mean, the value of getting those future years of Mariota, I don't know about Winston now, but let's say Carr, Mariota, I'd rather just kind of gamble with those guys now, and then hopefully they can improve in the future and keep my first. Because I mean, Roethlisberger's got 2 years max left, including this one, so he's probably done after 2019. So I don't know if I'd give up 105 for him.
So I'm torn because I like to go for it. And I think he does. I think he is that piece that can put you over the top this year. If you're already up there and that is the situation you have come to find yourself in, especially with Jameis Winston, like that's the biggest one that I can think of right now, that all of a sudden out of nowhere, you went from feeling really comfortable. Maybe you already have Ryan Fitzpatrick as you handcuffed him. In that case, you're probably solid. But if you didn't, and all of a sudden you lost what that expected production, I'm going to try and go after Ben. There's other guys on this list I'm probably going to try and go after first, but I'm probably going to have to settle for trying to get Ben Roethlisberger. But his playoff schedule is the Raiders in week 14, the Patriots in week 15, and the Saints in week 16. Now, I know we're a dynasty podcast, but winning is also important. Winning money sets you up in dynasty and allows you to do some other moves in the future where you might be a little less worried about it taking a year to pay off. So I do like to go for the win. I probably would give it. I would probably go heavy to get Ben Roethlisberger. I don't mind paying up for a guy when I'm going for a win. I tend to even overpay at that point because I want the guy and I don't want that guy going to somebody else that I'm going to be competing against. So we've got some other guys that we're going to compare him to. Above him at a little bit higher range, Drew Brees comes in at 24, Tom Brady at 19. So they're obviously also in that same kind of age situation. And then a little bit more expensive because they're younger, but maybe not necessarily as consistent, even though Ben Roethlisberger sometimes does suffer inconsistencies. We have Mitchell Trubisky and Sam Darnold right in the 21 range. Now, Trubisky's been pretty good this year, so that would be a nice way to go if you are somebody that thinks he is a long-term solution. I'm not really somebody that thinks that about Trubisky. So I'd probably still go for Ben because I feel more comfortable putting him out there in those playoff weeks. So out of these four, where would you guys have him, relative to the price on this list? Brees, Brady, Trubisky, Darnold. Brees being the most expensive.
Relative to the 105, I know I'm not a fan, but I'd pay the 105 for Sam Darnold. He's young. He's not playing terribly this year. Darnold would be at the top. I'd probably give it for Brees and Brady just because I have more confidence in their ability to stay consistent down the stretch. And then I'd probably slide the 105 in. I'm not a Trubisky guy. I don't know. I mean, maybe in a super flex league, I can see, I'd give the 105 for Trubisky. Trubisky over the 105, but it's close. Then the 105, and then Big Ben.
What about you? I don't think you're getting any of the other 4 for the 105.
Yeah, I was actually.
I mean,
I was actually just
I think
looking.
you're going to have to pay a lot more to get any of those other 4.
I was just looking at the values of the other picks just for reference point here. And you said Breeze was a 24. You can't get him even with the 101. The 101's worth 22.5. The other 2 guys, Trubisky and Darnold, which we said were 21. That's about the 102 is 21 and a half. So there you're looking at that pick for those guys. And then Brady at 19. The 104 is 18.5. So you're looking between the 104 and the 103 to get him. So definitely not getting them for the 105. So here's the thing. Like we talked about, if you're a contender, if you're really in that championship mode, you probably don't have the 105 anyway. So one way or another, you're trading up for one of these picks to get them or making some other moves to get one of these guys. But here's my take on these guys. And I think if you can pull it off, I literally would take any one of these 4 over Roethlisberger. And I'll tell you why. Because if I'm going for a championship, I want Breeze and Brady first because I think they'll be more consistent, better production, Breeze and then Brady in that order. So I want those 2 guys for my championship run. You're not worried about the future. You're literally worried about just now. If I can't get those 2 guys, to me, Trubisky and Darnold, I'm trading for over Big Ben because, like we talked about, you're in a situation where you're down to 1 QB in a super flex. So you're trying to get a second QB, no matter who it is. And at least those guys give you the upside of youth, right? I would take Darnold over Trubisky for sure. I'm way higher on Darnold than Trubisky, but I do think both of those guys would be over Big Ben because at least there is some potential long-term value. Neither of them are losing their job next year or retiring next year. So you get at least that a little insulated value there that you could flip them if you need to or whatever. You know, if you have a Garoppolo as your second QB, when he comes off an injury next year, if you want to move one of those guys, you'll still be able to get a pretty decent price for either of them. So that's why I'm taking any one of those 4 over Big Ben.
Okay, so now the next tier is a 1-player tier, and I actually think this will be a quick one. Phillip Rivers, same price as Big Ben. I'm going Rivers over Ben. Anybody going Ben over Rivers?
No, not a chance. Rivers easily.
Yeah, the production's way more consistent, and I'm a huge Big Ben guy. I've had Big Ben in all my redraft leagues for like the last 4 years because I just can't stop. I know. I can't stop. Yeah, he was my QB1 a couple years ago. That was my big take. It did not work out. Yeah, he's but even still, this year Rivers looks great, and the offense is clicking, and I just think he's going to be more consistent. Ben may have bigger weeks here and there, but from a consistency level, it's going to be Rivers.
Okay, so we're all Rivers across the board there. The next tier we kind of touched on a little bit. It's Carr and Mariota. Would you feel comfortable going out and targeting them, knowing that they're a little bit younger? But would you be willing to risk, this might be the move that costs me the championship? How do you feel there?
I don't know if it would cost you the championship, but I would feel comfortable going after both of those guys for the 105 in a super flex league.
Okay. Kevin?
I believe, yeah.
Man. What did we say the 105 value was? Do we know?
Like 17.
Yeah, 17. It was like 17. So.
17. So both of those guys come in around the 15.5 range.
Correct. Theoretically a little cheaper. I don't think they actually are. So.
Yeah, no, I'm guessing you can't get them for much better than. Yeah, I'd probably give up the 105 for both of them because I think you can get it back.
All right, I'm gonna bump down to what I think could actually be. Maybe this is the move to go for the next group. Alex Smith and Andy Dalton. If those two are achievable, they're a lot cheaper. And I feel just as comfortable throwing them in my second spot as I do with Carr and Mariota right now. I like the long-term outlook of Carr and Mariota, but I'm trying to not weigh that in my decision. Right now, I'm looking at what can I go buy to help me win right now. Ultimately, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is the move because he's the cheapest. So I think trying to just get him and fill in and hopefully you can get by and maybe he keeps the job. If not, then you're eventually going to have to pony up. So I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is overall the premium move. But what about Dalton and Alex Smith? And we'll throw Dak in there too. Those three. I think, they're kind of that final tier of, would you go down to them and feel comfortable with them as your second QB instead of Ben? Kevin, let's start with you again this time. I think Riley went first last time.
Yeah, Dak leads the group for me because he is still young. I do think he'll still continue to get opportunities, and I think that offense will be a little bit better. New offensive line coach coming in. Hopefully, they can do some different things to get some better blocking with Amari Cooper. Maybe he has a little bit of an uptick. Cooper, surprisingly, I think is a pretty decent match with Dak. So I like that fit there. Dalton and Alex Smith for sure. If you can get them cheaper than you can get Big Ben, I'd take that all day long, because all you really want in that second QB spot at this point in your season, if you're going for a run, is just someone to put in the spot, right? You need a warm body that's not Eli Manning to throw the ball.
See, I think you need a little bit of a different. I think you need a difference maker to win the championship. I think either of these guys will get you there, but I think to actually win, I think
you don't think Dalton can win a championship?
I think
he can.
Dalton can also go out and throw no touchdowns, and they have just an ugly game. I think he's more likely to have an ugly game than Ben Roethlisberger.
He's more likely to have an ugly game, but again, depending on the price, right? I think you're going to get him for a lot less, so hopefully you're not weakening your roster elsewhere. If you're just giving up picks, fine, go for Ben all day long, right? If you're giving up...
I am curious, like, do you actually think you would get Dalton cheaper? I know he's cheaper in the calculator, but in real-world scenario, you're trying to get a quarterback, you think you're going to get Dalton cheaper than Roethlisberger right now?
Yeah, because I think
so.
Yeah, go ahead, Riley.
I was just gonna say, I think so. That's it.
Okay, well, good.
Riley, where do you have Roethlisberger with this group of? Would you rather go for him, or would you rather go for Dalton, Dak, and or Smith?
If those are my only four options, I'd go Dalton first, because I think you can get him cheaper. I would go Dak second because he's younger, not better, but he's younger. And then Roethlisberger third, just based on value, because I think he's the most expensive of the four. And then Alex Smith is the last try, because he's old. He's basically Dak in an older body. And I mean, is he really going to be a difference maker for you? Absolutely not. So
he's likely got a job at least for the next 2 years, 3. I mean, they paid him. So
I mean, they have to draft someone this year, right? They have to try and bring in a quarterback. Either draft someone, or maybe Winston goes over to Washington. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're set on Alex Smith. I think he's a stopgap.
I think of those
stopgap, but I think he's got at least another year, maybe a year after this.
I think of those four quarterbacks, the guy who is most likely to lose his job in the next year and a half is Roethlisberger. No one else is behind the other three. Nobody's behind Dak. Nobody's behind Dalton. And, obviously the Redskins don't have anybody, but Mason Rudolph was a 3rd round pick, and he's sitting there. Not saying he's better than Roethlisberger, but if he throws, more 4 or 5 interception games, you never know.
So we went through a lot of quarterbacks there. That's a lot more than we usually do. But when I started to look at quarterbacks, I was really kind of surprised at just the amount of all of these quarterbacks. To be honest, none of them jumped out at me as that's the guy that I would want to go after out of all of them. Obviously, I'd love to get Breeze, but he's going to cost you so much, and you almost can't get him. And the person that has him probably is also competing. So I was trying to factor that in, the likelihood of a guy being available. You're probably going to be looking at the lower end of the list. And to me, Ben felt like the one that I would probably go after the most. It's really, I mean, we're watching a game right now where, like we talked about, who's this guy starting for San Francisco? That's how quarterbacks kind of gotten ugly, and locking in that quarterback 2 in a super flex position. I think it's a strength that will be very valuable come playoff time, because I don't want to just throw Eli Manning out there in week 16 when there's money on the line. That can be treacherous, and that's not how I want to lose. I'd rather go for it, put Ben out there. At least I think he's got weapons to throw to and protection to get them to him, which makes me feel comfortable going to him. Out of the entire list that we talked about, is there one guy that you would particularly go for at the value, Kevin?
I mean, again, we talked about it. I think Breeze is worth the money if you can get him. Like you said, I don't think you can. So, if of any of these guys, if I have my choice and have the option, I'll give two answers. One, it's probably, like I said, Brady or Breeze for my championship run. If it's, I'm on the fence, or I can only get, one of the younger guys, Darnold's the guy I want.
All right, Riley, what about you? What about, give us one of the fill-in guys, not the young guy, because that comes with the automatic upside value, which everybody obviously wants, but is going to cost you a lot more. Give us a fill-in guy that you would go for.
I think Andy Dalton's the guy.
Dalton, all right.
And he carries somewhat of a negative reputation, but I mean, Tyler Boyd has really come on this year, and Andy Dalton finally has a check down to go with AJ Green. Yep. I think he could just he could go all the way this year.
So I had a trade this week, and we'll move on after this because I know we're pressed for time here. But I had a trade this week in a league that you and I are in, Bosch, that I ran past Riley because I wanted his opinion, and I kind of want to get his opinion on the show because we didn't get a chance to actually talk about it too much. We just messaged a little bit. But I made a deal. I'm in the opposite scenario where I'm not going for a championship, and yet I had Phillip Rivers sitting on my roster doing basically nothing for me. I traded him for Jameis Winston and DJ Shark and like a 4th round pick, basically. So I'm curious your thoughts on this, Bosch. I already ran it past Riley, and I'll get his thoughts on it in a second. But your thoughts initially on that. Was it good for the guy going for the championship run, and was it good for me?
To me, that sounds like a win for both. I mean, that guy was in the exact scenario we just described. He lost Jameis Winston, who was, if he's a contender, you've now replaced that with Phillip Rivers, and he's probably in great shape. You got an asset that, I mean, I know he got benched, but I think you're fooling yourself if you don't think Jameis Winston is going to be a starting quarterback again in the future. I think he has more starts in his future than Phillip Rivers does in the rest of his career. So, you made the right move for your team scenario, and so did the other guy. That's a perfect trade. That's exactly what you want to go and target when you're in this situation.
And Riley, the question I asked you right before I pulled the trigger on the deal was, do you think Jameis Winston is a starting quarterback in this league? And your answer was yes. Still confident there?
I am. I mean, he didn't get a chance to start the season, and then he just was thrown in the fire. I just think it was a bad situation all around. Just a big coincidence. He's going to be fine. He'll figure it out. He's a little rocky. He is one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen come out of the draft. I mean, he was up there below Andrew Luck, but I mean, he was with those guys. I think he'll be fine. He'll be a starter.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the Ryan Fitzpatrick story. Like it's extremely entertaining, but let's face it, there's a reason that he's constantly the guy to come in and back up somebody.
Sure.
He's not going out and like leading this franchise to where they probably want to be. Maybe he can make it fun for this season and save Dirk Cutter his job. He's not the franchise quarterback.
He was already benched earlier this season.
Yeah. So
I was just going to say, I mean, you're talking about a coach who's literally fighting for his job right now. We all can see that. So he's going to put the player that he thinks can get the most wins, regardless of what the right move is. So I think Jameis gets a job as well. But let's move on, Riley. You got a running back for us.
I do. I have a running back and fewer players to discuss. So this will make up for Bosch. So the guy I'm bringing to the table is somebody who had very high hopes entering the season, and he really hasn't done a lot. But Jordan Howard has lost a lot of value this season. But
does he still have a value?
I'm so overexposed to Jordan Howard.
Sorry, we'll stop interrupting. Go on.
No, it's okay. I think he's going to have a nice second half, and I definitely think he could surprise some people and carry teams through the playoffs. His value before the season was roughly 23, 24. Right now it is a 17.9. So he's lost almost more than a second-round pick off of his value. So the player that I am going to try and move, if I'm sitting in 4th place, maybe some of my guys really, if I have Amari Cooper, if I have Gronk, who hasn't been doing much, I am going to move Royce Freeman, who is a 14.8 and a 2019 second to get Jordan Howard. So a 2019 second comes in at about a 5.0 value. So I'm going to overpay a little bit, but I definitely think Howard, first off, is more talented than Freeman and is in a better situation.
You hate Freeman.
Your Freeman hate is so aggressive.
So hate him.
It is. I don't even care. Freeman is Philip Lindsay beat him out this year. Philip Lindsay was not invited to the combine and was not drafted. That should tell you all you need to know.
But you like Philip Lindsay.
I like him more than Freeman. I don't love Lindsay. I weigh as much as Philip Lindsay does.
All right, let's not have this discussion.
Yeah, we don't need to go into his weight again.
Let's talk about Jordan Howard.
You can ballpark it. You can ballpark it. But I think Matt Nagy's going to get Jordan Howard more involved. He's just been a little touchdown dependent this far. I'm buying Howard because he's still young. He turns 24 tomorrow. Happy birthday, Jordan Howard. I mean, he's 23, 24 right now. He doesn't have a lot of tread on his tires. I mean, he's going to be fine. I think he's going to rebound and carry you to a championship. So my question is, first off, we're going to go Freeman and a 2019 second. We'll just call it mid, or Jordan Howard. Bosch, we'll start with you.
Honestly, this feels like a lateral move to me. So I don't typically make those kind of like, it feels like a 1-for-1. I know the second's in there. So I think I'd probably take the side with the pick because Freeman and I'm going to take Freeman in the pick.
But remember, you're a contender, so the pick is you're going for the championship here, Bosch. That's the scenario.
You always go for Freeman it. Out isn't. I mean, he should
week
be
to
back
week
shortly, right?
Week to week, I think.
Yeah. I don't think Howard's the piece that would put me over the top. I would be more likely to try and go after Tariq Cohen if I'm going to go after a Bears backfield. So yeah, I'll stick with Freeman and hope that when he comes back that he has a piece of the offense a little bit more than what I expect out of Howard. And I'm kind of like Kevin. I have Howard in some places. So I wouldn't be the places I have him and I'm going for a championship. I would not be giving him up for Freeman, but I don't think I'd really make that move either way. Just it feels risky to me. So I would just kind of stand pat with whichever guy I have at the moment, to be honest.
I am buying Howard all day long for that price, Riley. I'm with you on this one. I think the value is pretty close. So, but I think that if I am in a championship mode, I don't think Freeman does anything for me from a confidence level going forward for this season, whether he's injured, sharing touches with Philip Lindsay, any of that. I think there is a much better avenue for Jordan Howard to get touches than there is for Royce Freeman.
That's the answer I was looking for.
So if I'm in championship mode, I want that production. And I agree with you. I hope that he turns it around. I mean, look, the guy's been a very solid running back for 2 straight years. He had over 1,100 yards both of his first 2 years, over a 4.1 yards per carry both years. He was 5.2 in his first year. He's down right now, getting used to this new offense. And I don't even know that they know what they're doing right now. But I think they're going to need him down the stretch because we've seen Trubisky, and I don't know if you guys have been watching. I know that most of you listening to this play fantasy, so you probably love Trubisky. But if you've been watching the games, he's not very good, and they need to mask him as much as they possibly can. I think a strong running game in the second half of the season will help them do that. They have a good offensive line that's been banged up, so hopefully they can get a little healthier and play a little better. That will open up some better holes for Jordan Howard. It's Jordan Howard all day long if I'm going for a championship in this one.
You're kind of winning me over, Kevin, and making me like the places that I do. Like Howard's somebody I've legitimately benched him, like in my Pigs 1 league, where I'm going for the championship. There have been times I've not started Howard because I don't feel good about him.
Yep.
Man,
here's the other thing, though.
I hope you're right, because
here's the other thing, though.
Huge help to me.
Tariq Cohen, we've seen what happens when he gets too much work. It goes downhill, and I think it will eventually this season as well.
Like once you start getting into the dog days, week 10, 11, 12, Cohen's not going to be able to hold up carrying the ball as much as he is. But you know who can? Jordan Howard, baby. Anyways, next step in the Jordan Howard process. Bosch, you can keep all your players. You can keep all your young guys.
Okay.
But you have to give a mid-2019 first for Jordan Howard to make your championship push.
Yeah, in that case, I probably would do it. I mean, if I'm just giving up just a straight pick and I'm going for a championship, I don't have a problem giving up a pick because I do think Jordan Howard will be a usable piece. I don't think he's unusable. And I'm okay with giving up the pick. I know that's a future player that but I don't have that guy yet. I have no expectation of him, so to me, that's different than giving up Royce Freeman, who I think could probably come in and maybe do the same thing that Jordan Howard can down the stretch. I really do think that they could have the same year as the season comes to an end. So, but a pick's not doing me any good right now. A pick does not win me the championship. Jordan Howard can help my lineup if I'm in that situation. So definitely Jordan Howard there.
Yeah, no brainer for me. I'm giving up the pick. I originally was thinking mid first, and that's it's very high for him. But yeah, the more I think about it with championship mode, with trophies in my eyes, I would hit accept and live to regret it later.
Again, like I said, I am an overpayer. When it comes to people will be able to take advantage of me if I am coming down in a championship league. It's trade deadline, and they have a piece to get rid of, and I have the capital to give it. I will, because that's what matters to me is winning the money.
All right. So
and the prestige, of course.
There it is. So we have our answer on Howard. I'm going to call an audible and just give you guys a quick option. So he's been awful this year. I've always hated him, but his value's so low, I've thought about buying him. And no, I don't hate everybody. But Derrick Henry is down to a 9.9 value.
I've actually started to think about, is it time to buy some of him as well?
It's not.
I don't like him, and I don't like Allen Robinson. Like, I don't have them anywhere that I really probably invest. I have no investment. Like, if I have them, I got them cheap. But I have started to think of these two. Man, I think they're both of them. I think their values are starting to get where I kind of want to buy.
What did you say the value was, Riley?
It's a 9.9.
Is that like a mid-second?
Way.
9.9.
That's a first-round pick.
That's a first-round pick.
That's
I don't have a pick memorized.
Really, really late first. The value I got was 2 mid-2019 seconds. Those come in at a 5.
I got 1.12 is 9.0 and 1.11 is like 10.5. So you're somewhere in between the 111 and the 112. Maybe if you throw 2 seconds, someone who's desperate to get out gives them to you, but I think you have to pay a first, and I'm not doing it. No,
I don't know if you have to pay a first anymore. If you can get it for 2 seconds, I think I would do.
So that's why I didn't include the first. I didn't include the first because I don't think you can expect a first back. But 2 seconds sounds.
Yeah, I'm not giving a first, but I would probably buy for 2 seconds at this point. I mean, I think I would too. Offense, it has to be better in the second half. It absolutely has to be. Right?
I just don't think he's very good. I don't think he's good. I think he's not a good running back.
I don't think so either.
And now, and so now you have a guy that was not a very good running back, but expected to get a lot of volume, who's now not going to get volume either, unless Dion Lewis goes down.
But I think it's another. I think it's another Jordan Howard situation. And we saw Henry looked good last year in the playoffs when it got colder. I think Dion's going to need to sit more. I think he's going to be used in more specialty situations. And I think they're just going to feed Henry down the stretch.
You want to know what it is, Riley?
You called an audible on the show because we aren't going for Derrick Henry in a championship run. I will say that immediately. That's not a guy that I'm looking to add for a championship team. It is a guy that I might start to look. I might start looking to buy low because I think his value is going to drop. Every week that he does poorly, his value drops more. So,
Riley, I've said this before, and you are our resident film guy, right? Do you actually think Henry?
Is this about Henry?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Do you think that, and not from like his college tape or anything like that? What I want to know is, do you think he's a good fit with Mariota? Because I think that's a bad marriage.
Yeah, it's not.
I think Dion Lewis is a very good fit with Mariota.
Let me just say, Nick Mullins threw a touchdown, so let's go. Bosch, I love you. You're my hero. You told me to start him. Anyways, dude, I'm so excited.
Me too.
I'm cutting all of this out.
You got to keep that. So
it can be the Easter egg at the end.
Mullins. So yeah, Kevin, to answer your question, finally, no, I don't think it's a good marriage, but Henry always looks better in the last third of the season. I don't know why, but he always does. He beats up on defenders, somehow outruns them, even though he's not really fast. I hated Derrick Henry, but you know what? He's a cheap investment who could pay dividends for you in the playoffs. So that was my reason.
All right.
Let's get to wide receiver.
We'll move along to wide receiver. We can debate Derrick Henry offline later, Riley. And I'm going to bring a guy
do a buy low show coming up in about probably like the next episode would be a good time. Derrick Henry's going to be even cheaper.
He'll be even he will be even cheaper by then. All right, the guy that I'm going to talk about right now is a guy that we've talked about his quarterback a couple of times already in this show.
Nick Mullins?
No, not Nick Mullins. I'm going to talk about Deshaun Jackson because he's a guy that I think if you're a wide receiver thin and you are running for a championship, I think he's a guy that you want to add on your roster. Look, he's had good success with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's coming back in as the starter. Over his first 3 games this season with Ryan Fitzpatrick as a quarterback, he averaged 104 yards, a touchdown through those first 3 games with a couple of big ones thrown in there as well. His value on the calculator is low too. It's a 4.3, so you can get him for pretty light. That ends up being a mid-second round pick. So we'll start there, Riley. Deshaun Jackson, if you're going for a championship for a mid-second.
I'll take the mid-second.
Really?
Yeah. You know what? Jackson has always had a hard time staying healthy, and that is just my only concern with him. He could tweak something and be out for 3 weeks, and he's not going to help me injured on my bench in week 13 when I'm making a push. I think I could find safer options. Jackson is like splashy.
For a mid-second, you think you can find a safer option?
I think so.
Well, we'll get into some of the players later, then maybe we'll see. Bosch, what about you?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what the other players are because Deshaun Jackson's not a guy that I've ever really tried to invest in. He has always felt risky to me, and I know he has some really big weeks, but I like safety out of a lot of positions. Now, I have started to convert a little bit in my thought of my lineups as we start to play in these leagues with your starting 10. And when I have, maybe 3 or 4 other receivers where I feel kind of safe with them, then I start to get a little bit more aggressive and throwing in a guy that might just get 3 catches, but they might be for 100 yards and a touchdown. Normally, I target volume for wide receivers, and Deshaun Jackson's never been that guy for me, But so I guess if I have enough other safety, I might go for it. But I'm probably going to be on Riley's team here. I hope I can get something better for a mid-second. Let's hear what the options are, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, for a mid-second, I think I'm going to take it because I don't know that we'll go through some of the options, like I said, but I think that if I'm in championship mode and I can throw a mid-second at something that might, give me an extra option down the stretch, I think I'm doing that all day long. You're talking about the guy that currently has a 16.8 points per game average in PPR formats. He's that puts him at wide receiver 19 right now.
Yeah, but how sustainable is that? You think
I don't know how sustainable it is, but
I don't think it is.
He seems to work really well with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and
yes.
if that's the quarterback, I think that you're going to see that. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. So let's get into some players, and they're kind of a little all over the place because I was curious, what we'll go with here. But I'll give you the names before I give you the values. Taylor Gabriel, Geronimo Allison, Nelson Aguilar, and Sterling Shepard are all guys that I threw out there as interesting options. So, Bosch, we'll start with you. Before I give the values, I'm curious how you rank these guys and who you'd go after.
Okay, so I go Shepard would be my first, Geronimo would be my second, then Deshaun Jackson, then Taylor Gabriel, then Aguilar, which, man, that's a shame. Aguilar really took a hit. Prior to the trade deadline, I think Aguilar might have been up near the top of the list for me. But, yeah, Shepard, Geronimo, Deshaun Jackson, Taylor Gabriel, Aguilar is my ranking. What about you, Riley?
So I'm going to go Sterling Shepard first, and then I'm going to completely disregard the rest of the list because I don't want to buy him if I'm trying to contend. So I'm going to give you 2 other options.
All right.
Willie Snead has averaged 10.6 fantasy points per game this year. He's had 1 game in single digits. Willie Snead is back.
I just traded Snead for Sanu today. And I'm a championship contender, and I felt more comfortable with Sanu.
Deshaun Jackson has 16.8 points per game. I get it. There's a little bit more of a boom bust, but that's almost 7 points per game more.
Yeah. I would want Deshaun Jackson over Snead. Yeah.
I just don't trust Jackson's durability. I mean, it's
well,
always been a factor. And can I give you one more name?
Yeah. Absolutely.
David Moore in his last 3 games for the Seahawks has put out 18 points, 13 points, and 19 points. I'm not saying for a second, but I think you can get him for cheaper, and he has a ton of upside because they just released Brandon Marshall,
who was getting nothing, by the way. Brandon Marshall was 23 targets on the season.
There's no way Doug Baldwin stays as silent as he's been.
Yeah, Baldwin getting healthier. Tyler Lockett still
David
in my
Moore
mind
for cheaper. And Willie Snead for cheaper. I'm not paying a mid-second game.
I'm not putting David Moore in my lineup. That's the thing. We're going after guys that you're going to try and start right now.
Forget the cost. It's the championship you're going after, and those guys aren't helping you win.
Right, but that cheap investment could pay huge dividends.
But it doesn't.
If I'm just taking a shot, right?
It doesn't help me win the championship. I don't care about. That's what we're throwing that out right now. We're not worried about the future anymore, Riley. When you go for the win, you got to go for the win.
Yeah, I mean these guys have produced though.
David,
but not to David Jackson or to Deshaun Jackson's level. Like I said, he's
not in your championship lineup.
Wide receiver 19 right now.
I don't think DJ. I don't know if I'm comfortable starting DJX. I don't know.
If Deshaun Jackson is healthy, you're putting him in.
You're talking about guys.
He's on the roster. He's starting.
I think I have better about players than DJX though.
But the guys that you're bringing up are maybe wide receiver 4s.
Okay,
so they're getting you through bye weeks, but they're not going to be in your championship run.
Okay, okay.
You disagree? You just don't like DJ.
Riley,
that's fine.
Well, but Riley can't break the mindset of having to have that future out that future upside that stays with you, right, Riley? Like that's a battle that you're fighting, right?
I mean, it always plays a factor.
Correct.
I want to go back for a second, Riley.
That's what I'm saying. Like just in general, sometimes you have to throw that out to get over that hump. Because if somebody else in your league isn't worrying about next year, guess what they're doing? They're loading up. And while you may have insulated a little bit more value for next year, they're beating you to the championship on the way. That's the key. Like that's just, you're going to lose to them. Maybe you'll be better next year, but then somebody else is going to come in and load up to go for it. Like, unless
at a certain point when you get close, you have to do it. You got to sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't have to do it, but if I want 10 points in my lineup, a guaranteed 10 points, I'm going to play Willie Snead.
I don't want my championship teams don't have guys that are a guaranteed 10 points. They have guys that are getting 17 and 18 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I mean, injuries happen, right? So what if you lose?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, but I think when you make that decision to go for it and go all in, an injury is gonna. I mean, it's probably gonna derail you either way, right? Because that 10-point guy is not gonna carry you through the championship. He'll help you. You might get a couple, an extra round into the playoffs. I just don't think you're gonna be the team to beat anymore. But anyway, I want to go back for a second because you don't like any of these guys, Gabriel, Allison, or Aguilar. I mean, you don't like any of them?
I mean, if you're telling me you're confident in putting Geronimo Allison and Nelson Aguilar in your lineup and not Willie Snead,
I agree with you, actually. Deshaun Jackson's the guy I want on all
I just gave 2 more options instead because I didn't like the rest.
That's fine. Sterling Shepard's the guy that I would. I
Please
still don't think
show me when you're putting
guy.
Geronimo in your championship lineuip.
I can show you where I started Geronimo, and I've started him in multiple lineups. But the tiebreaker between
Willie Snead, what are we talking about?
The tiebreaker between Geronimo and Djax for me is one guy, Aaron Rodgers. So
that's right.
I mean, if he didn't have Aaron Rodgers, then Deshaun Jackson would be. So Kevin, I'm surprised you just hate Eli that much.
I would think Shepard's the only other guy I would consider over Djax, and even him though, I still think that I think that offense is a mess right now, and the volume is that tight
offense
for him.
Is a mess. The Buccaneers just went back to Ryan Fitzpatrick,
who will throw over 300 yards every game.
Probably.
They may lose, but he's gonna chuck it all over the place. So
it's true.
Listen, all right, real quickly, just so that I can give these out here. Taylor Gabriel was a 2.8. Geronimo Allison was a 3.9. Aguilar was a 4.9. Shepard, as you guys, picked up on, was a 6.0, so he's higher. And then, I was a little surprised Aguilar still has more value than Djax, because I thought his value would be totally.
He might
totally
need an update after that trade.
Yeah,
Tate coming in, I think, is going to really hurt him,
really ruin it. But that's it. So, and that's it for wide receivers, and that's it for the show. We're gonna wrap it up now because I can tell Bosch isn't paying attention to us anymore. He's only watching Mullins throw touchdown passes left and right, I'm sure. So thank you, everyone, listening to this 20th episode of the Dynasty Wall Street podcast. I just want to remind everyone we are going to have some T-shirts coming out soon. Hit us up on Twitter for those. You can message myself at Kevin Cotillo. You can message John Bosch at John Bosch FF. You can message Riley at DTC_Riley B. You can message the show at Dynasty Wall Street. That's ST for Street. Let us know what you got for a size or when you want one, and we'll get you the details and all of that. John, what's up?
We do also need to mention that we want to give a thank you to JP. JP is going to be stepping away from the flagship podcast, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to miss him. I've always enjoyed listening to him, and I mean, he was pretty integral in giving us a chance to have their megaphone here. So, big thank you to JP, and best wishes as you go to spend some more time with your family.
He's truly been phenomenal.
Phenomenal. That's great.
Jonas Gray would be happy. So many things. And one thing I just want to say real quick before I leave is bye.
Yeah.
There it is. I like it. Thank you very much. And yeah, absolutely big shout out to JP. Best of luck with your real kids and your adopted child, Riley. We're proud of you for taking care of them. So we'll be back in a couple more weeks. And until then, go ahead, Riley, give him another one.
Bye.
So good. So good.